Boulevard East, the park. It's a one-way park, one-way street around the park. It used to be a reservoir many, many years ago, and it was filled in and became a beautiful playground and park. The building itself is on the corner of Holt Place and Reservoir Oval. And even though the address is 3288 Reservoir Oval, there's the building right up ahead. The entrance is on Holt Place. Now, hopefully we're going to find a parking spot. This is another problem here.
Wasn't the Riviera right around here when it got stolen?
The Riviera
was parked right over here, right?
It's always around here, yes.
And isn't that the building right there?
This is the building, sure.
Okay.
The question is, where do we find a parking spot, which is an old problem here. And let's see if I can find something. We'll take a chance here. See if we don't get a ticket with half the car sticking out. Let's get some shots from the window upstairs. The building from here? It's a multifaceted building. It was designed by an architect, and the history of the building is interesting because it was put up by a Mr. Racklin, who inherited a lot of money from his father, and within 1 year after putting up the building, Mr. Racklin lost the building because he couldn't generate enough income. He had apparently overextended himself.
What year do you think it was built?
I know what year it was built. We were the first tenants in that apartment.
Oh, so the building was new.
The building was totally new when we came in. It was built in 1961 and finished in 1962. And we're going up to 706, which is the original apartment in this building. This is the lobby. When we first moved in here, there were couches in here. The couches have been stolen. There hasn't been any couches in here since then. Also, this wall here had sort of a bluish wallpaper, and somewhere along the line they put up this tile that sort of gives you a totally enclosed feeling. But we were here among the first tenants in the building, the first one occupied apartment 706. Some changes made here. The building originally had a super named Mr. Al Elliott.
Al Elliott?
Yes, you gotta remember he had a German Shepherd. He was from Australia. He kept the building almost like a stormtrooper. Tenants were intimidated by him.
Oh yeah.
At that time, the elevator door didn't look this scraggly, though.
Wow. Brings back some memories for me to be here, but as usual, when you visit a place where you were a kid, it's a lot smaller. I think I was 3 or 4 when I lived here, so it's kind of interesting.
Well, you were precisely 4 years old. We moved out in September. We're not quite 4 because your birthday is in November.
Yeah, I was 3 and a half, but you know what? I still.
3 and a half. You were 3 years and.
I have very vivid memories of these buttons.
Let me show you something interesting here.
These buttons are the same. They always were before.
Look at that little mark over here. See this mark here, Michael? That's probably a bullet hole. Like it's something that somebody decided one day
I remember
As the tenants
actually.
changed slightly.
Yeah, I remember actually being here one time and visiting the building. There was police tape over one of the entrances. I think somebody had gotten
Yes.
shot in one of the
Yeah,
apartments.
there was a murder in one of the.
There was a murder in one of the apartments here. Okay,
Yeah, we're going upstairs.
going up one more.
Oh, we want to be on TV.
You want to be on TV? Okay, hi.
Hi.
I grew up in this building.
Oh, I did too.
You did too? Really? My dad's been the doctor who's
Oh, from
upstairs.
upstairs.
Uh-huh.
I remember. I used to live on the 7th floor in the corner.
Oh yeah?
But then we had to, instead of moving on up, we had to
Move down one. All right. You guys take care. Ciao. So this is the doctor's office.
This is the original, the door's been painted, but this is the original sign.
Yeah.
It was taken off once. I'll explain a little later when it was taken off.
And then down there was the apartment, right?
Yes.
Oh, Michael, hi.
Hi, Gana. How are you?
Okay, good.
Good. I'm here to videotape it.
Having fun?
Uh-huh.
Enjoying this?
Nice to see you.
Memories? Yeah,
How are
too.
you?
Okay.
Mwah.
Good.
Hey.
Good.
Wow, I haven't seen those chairs for a while. Hey, Marty. How are you?
Marty Wolkoff.
Good to see you, Marty. How are you? Hi.
You careful what I say.
That's right. You're on videotape. Well, my father wanted us to come down because he's closing this office after 38 years to take some videotape. You know, I grew up in the apartment down from over there, and I haven't seen some of these chairs and furniture and wow, gosh, a long time. Stuff like really brings back memories for me from growing up. Wow, it's amazing to be here.
Today's you want pictures, don't you? You want still shots.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some still shots too. This is the view.
You know, come with you on your computer today, catch the view.
Yeah, the view is pretty nice, I remember. You can see the park. Yeah. It's interesting. Here's the examining room. Kitchenette area. Oh, what did I miss? Did I miss a good
I
story?
hear the story that
This is really
Johanna
good.
just told me. That what happened today?
Oh, well, I came in and I called the service to find out if there were any messages, and they tell me that I should call Greg, and they leave a number, and I figured we had a Greg working for us, so I call him back, and he wasn't there, he called me back. And he says, did you answer the resume, Dr. So-and-so? I said, he didn't even have a name. I
okay.
said, I don't know what this is about. I said, I'm returning your call. There was a message.
Right.
How he got this phone number, I don't know. But
Right.
at any rate, I said, what is this in reference to? He says, well, somebody filled out they answered my ad and filled out a resume. I said, I don't think so. So he says, yeah, he asked me for the phone number. I mean, I don't know how he got the phone number. And he's looking this up, and I said, by the way, I said, what is this for? He says, we're looking for a medical doctor. I says, you mean in what position? He says, to come and work in the office. I said, you mean as an employee? I said, no way. I'm a doctor.
Right.
Oh,
For
right.
5 uniforms.
But I just figured I better ask, you know. You
Bloody
can
suck.
You never know.
God. Oh, Lordy.
Who gave you these little pictures over here, Dad?
I think some of them are from Helen Jill Fletcher. I'm going to take some of them.
She was a patient of yours?
She was a relative of mine, of ours.
A relative? Who was she?
She was a writer of children's books. She changed her name from Feldschuh to Fletcher.
Feldschuh to Fletcher. It's not very auspicious of her. And what about this?
Let me take some overall shots, Michael. We'll come back. Let me just tell you, let's start. I have an organized idea how we're
All right.
going to film this.
Okay, how do you want to film this?
All right. Now, we're filming tonight. Today is January the 30th, 2002, and we're going to be leaving this facility in the end of February or in March 2002, and that's going to mark 38 years from the time that we took this apartment. We were the first tenants in it.
Uh-huh.
There's something appropriate about Johanna being here tonight,
Uh-huh.
because she was the first tenant next door.
Mm-hmm.
And when she moved in here, I think Johanna was pregnant with Jody, and your mother Roxanne was pregnant with Jonathan 3 months. And we had looked around for a while
Uh-huh.
to try to find a nice apartment. We lived on 3550 Rochambeau Avenue, which was near the hospital. It was a L-shaped apartment, and even in that apartment, while I was a resident, I already started a little bit of a private practice,
Uh-huh.
because, well, it was not permitted, but I was earning $35 a month when we were married in November of 1962, and
$35 a month doesn't sound like a lot even then.
no, it wasn't a lot. Your mother graduated and went to work as a teacher at Brealey.
Could they really pay you little more than $1 a day? Is that possible?
That's right, I hadn't thought about it. Yes, you're right. In fact, I think the first year they paid me as an intern $17 a week. But,
$17 a week.
no, it's $17 a month. Yeah,
$17 a month.
week, and then $35 a week, yes.
Huh, I think you could have
Did I
gotten...
say it's $35 a month? I
Yeah,
misspoke.
$35 a week.
It was $35 a week.
Oh.
I misspoke
Oh,
myself.
for a second I thought you were working for the WPA and the Depression.
No, it was $35.
Oh, $35 a week.
Right.
All right. Well, then it must have been rather luxurious.
So you have to understand, I'd already started a practice.
Uh-huh.
I was also part of a house call group that moonlighted on the nights that I wasn't covering. At that time, as a resident,
Uh-huh.
you worked every third night, so
Right.
that left at least 20 nights when you were supposed to be resting from your day job.
Uh-huh.
But on those other nights, many of those nights I worked in the house call group. There were 4 or 5 of us that covered the Bronx.
Uh-huh.
And also, to add to the fun, I worked at Westchester Square Hospital,
Uh-huh.
where I was the only doctor on call for about 180 patients.
That's...
And that was also important because one of the episodes I had there
Uh-huh.
was an experience that led to my ultimately discovering the basis for accurate blood volume measurement.
Which became your work for the next 30 years, right?
It's 30 years, yes.
So what's the story with this wood engraving over here on the wall?
I don't know, we got that as a gift. I don't remember who that was, but let me tell you a little bit more about why we selected the apartment, because
Okay.
when we moved from Rochambeau,
Uh-huh.
already had started an obesity practice.
Uh-huh.
Also, illegal to have an outside practice, but I'd run a clinic at the hospital, and
Uh-huh.
so I had an idea that you could supplement your income, and we started seeing patients in an L-shaped apartment. We actually had a folding screen, and I would examine patients on our bed.
Uh-huh.
And the living room of the L-shaped apartment was the waiting room. With the onset of Jonathan,
Uh-huh.
or the imminent arrival of Jonathan, it became clear we needed our own apartment, and since I was earning some magnificent money thanks to my moonlighting,
Uh-huh.
we felt that we could afford this apartment. So
How much extra do you think your moonlighting brought in a month or a week?
brought in at least $100 a week extra.
Wow, so you really tripled your standard of living pretty quickly.
All right, so we saw this apartment, and first of all, I showed a predilection that I've always had. When you came out, you can't see it tonight,
Uh-huh.
but it's on a park, and we were on the top floor, and you have a beautiful view.
Uh-huh.
It's too bad we're filming at night,
Uh-huh.
but the park had a track, it had basketball courts, and it had a football field.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it still has the football field, but for years, you could wake up to games in the fall. So we decided to take this apartment. I recently found an original check for the lease. So
Really?
you know what we paid here? We paid originally $262 a month.
Okay.
So that was a big step up for us.
Uh-huh.
And of course, to make it all practical,
Uh-huh.
we instituted an office in here.
Oh, so first this is where you lived and had your practice. Then you
Just
stepped.
as in 3550 Rochambeau, where
Okay.
our L-shaped apartment was a little bit more. This was a more formal setup.
Okay.
And one of the things that we did here was we had this waiting room. I don't know if we had all of these chairs. Most of these chairs are new, but there is a chair here which is worthwhile to see. These two chairs are from the original apartment. This chair has been recovered, and this chair has simply been repatched with tape. But these chairs are over 35 years old. They're more precise, they're at least 38 years old because they were brought over from the other apartment. And where Johanna is sitting right now was where we had a dining room table, which also doubled as a work area. We didn't quite have all of these file cabinets here at that time. And this little room here was the consulting examining room. I was configured a little bit differently, but it had most of these things here. This steel case was something that I salvaged from Montefiore Hospital's garbage area. I took it here and it was resprayed, but it was thrown out by the hospital. I took that, and I had a desk in here, and this was an examining table. And it was a little awkward. If a patient had to change, I had to step out of the room while they changed, and I came back in. But this was the consulting room, a separate consulting room, so that patients did not have to be examined on my bed. And this was a kitchen. And there was a stove in here, and obviously cooking took place in here.
Now is this an EKG machine right here?
This is an EKG machine.
Is this original?
No, it's not the original.
Okay.
But there was a stove in here, which some years later, when we get to, was taken out. For the original stage, this was a kitchen. Cooked in here. We ate out here in the little dining area. When patients weren't here. That table was, I believe, our original dining table.
Oh, it looks about the right size.
And in September of that year, Jonathan was born and taken back here. Now, the only room that was really private was the bedroom here. And we'll get to the story of how this ultimately became our consulting room. But this here was our bedroom. It had a crib for Jonathan. And your mother and I had our only private room in here. So this was the start of our practice. Well, not really the start. Our start of our first private office, or more appropriately, I guess, our apartment office. It was, in that sense, almost our second one. And what happened then was that we had this apartment, and we realized we were going to have another child, and we had planned the birth of Jonathan, and then we wanted to have a second child, and being fairly fertile, mother became pregnant right away with Stephen, and then we got what we thought to be a lucky break.
Which was what?
Another apartment on this in this line, which was called a 5-room apartment, became available. It actually had 2 bedrooms, a dining room, and also a living room combination, similar to this. And the occupants, one of them was also a doctor, and he was drafted to go to Vietnam, so they had to give up the apartment.
Did you feel bad for him that he got drafted?
I did feel badly for him that he got drafted.
Did you worry that you could be drafted too?
I was very concerned that I could be drafted too.
Uh-huh.
At that time, I was still in my training, so they didn't draft people out of training.
Right.
But I suddenly saw an opportunity. This was 1965, 66,
Uh-huh.
to get a larger apartment, an apartment that had the possibilities of having a bigger private bedroom,
So you were...
two separate bathrooms. That was another thing.
Uh-huh.
That, let's talk about that. Not only did we share the bathroom ourselves, but of course, the bathroom here was the bathroom that all the patients used.
Uh-huh.
There were also,
And does it look now like it did then?
it looks pretty much the way it looked then.
Uh-huh. This cabinet was always here like
That
this?
cabinet was there like that, and of course we had our private things in there with the patients. And the one thing you can notice over here is that the urine tests were always done in the bathroom. So we had multiple urine tests, and since we were off, big start of my practice was obesity patients, which involved ketone testing to see if people were dieting. We would have lots of urine tests being done in the apartment or in the office. Also,
What?
in those
So
days,
no one's taken a shower back here for many years, huh?
no one's taking a shower here.
Okay.
In those days, patients would come up here and they would smoke.
Uh-huh.
And I don't quite know when it was, but
Uh-huh.
somewhere along the line, your mother insisted that she couldn't stand the smell of the smoke permeating the whole house from the patients.
Uh-huh.
So she insisted that smoking not be permitted. I was somewhat ambivalent about it because I was concerned that some patients would not come since we did not permit them to smoke. But
As their doctor, did you tell them not to smoke
as a
then?
doctor, I definitely told them not to smoke. But
Was it known back then, even in the mid-60s, how dangerous and toxic smoking was?
It was known that it was dangerous, not to the extent that it was known today, though.
So you advised all your patients who were smokers not to do it, but you would let them smoke in the waiting room
We
if
did
they...
let them smoke. Your mother's view prevailed. And once upon a time, we don't have it here, we had extra folding chairs.
Uh-huh.
I've looked at my old records, and in those days, I used to see, by the time I finished my residency at Montefiore, I'd built up a huge waiting list of patients.
Uh-huh.
And when I fully got going, I would see as many as 150 to 200 patients a week. And there were times when this office was full of patients,
Uh-huh.
and we actually would have to break out folding chairs, and patients would sort of be sitting in the middle.
Uh-huh. You must have been very busy with that many people waiting all the time.
It was busy. And so the next step that occurred
Uh-huh.
was my obtaining that apartment and also being offered a fellowship at Bellevue Hospital at Columbia Division. I had already made an observation that had developed a theory that there were several forms of heart failure.
Uh-huh.
And that was based on a patient who I had seen at Westchester Square Hospital who was treated with saline after a heart attack and had pulmonary edema.
Uh-huh.
And his private doctor insisted I give him saline, which I was certain would kill him.
Uh-huh.
But to my surprise, the patient got better.
Uh-huh.
His pulmonary edema cleared.
Uh-huh.
And I knew I had seen some miraculous thing. I couldn't understand it.
Uh-huh.
But I thought about it for weeks until I figured out that the only explanation was that the patient had a low blood volume
Uh-huh.
and that he'd probably vomited and was dehydrated, and even though his lungs were congested,
Uh-huh.
once you increased his blood volume, his circulation improved,
Uh-huh.
and the entire cycle reversed.
So is this why when patients are bleeding, they give them an IV to increase their blood volume
Oh,
so that
of
they don't
course.
bleed to death?
Sure, they bleed to death.
Right. So you can have if you're bleeding, you need an IV. That's what keeps you alive.
Well, if you're bleeding, you need blood, not just an IV. It's
But an IV helps get your blood volume up so
well, it's
that...
a way of getting something into your circulation. Saline.
Anything helps. So, did you ask this doctor about his kind of miraculous suggestion to
Yes,
give saline?
yes,
What
I
was
remember.
his? What was? I mean, surely it was his idea. So, weren't you interested in why he prescribed it?
Absolutely. His name was Dr. Sabatini. I still remember him
Uh huh.
because I sat at the bedside all night
Uh huh.
expecting this patient to just go into full pulmonary edema.
Uh huh.
And he got better. I couldn't believe it.
Uh
And I finally asked the doctor, I said, why did you give this patient saline even though he was in pulmonary? And I realized he hadn't examined him too carefully. And he said, well, look, Sonny, it's just obvious.
huh.
He was dehydrated. He vomited. He was sweating.
Uh huh.
So I gave him saline. That's what he needed.
Uh huh.
I said, thank you.
Uh-huh. So you think that he didn't realize that there was a risk traditionally that he would go into pulmonary edema, meaning he didn't know that his lungs had been congested?
Right. He didn't pay too much attention to what I was saying. He didn't examine him too carefully, which was fortunate for the patient.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't pay too much attention to what.
To a young whippersnapper
Who was-
intern at that point, right?
Well, I
Or
wasn't an
you were a
intern.
resident?
I was a resident. I was
Right.
licensed.
Uh-huh.
So he didn't pay too much attention to what I said, and he focused on one aspect. The patient was dehydrated and sweating,
Uh-huh.
and that changed kind of the course of medical history a little bit because
That
ultimately
changed the course of your life quite a bit too,
changed the
actually.
course of my life. Sure, instead of becoming an endocrinologist, or as a chief resident in endocrinology. In fact, you might look at some of my diplomas.
Uh-huh.
Where's the Montefiore one? Well, here's my Columbia College diploma.
Uh-huh. You graduated in 57 from Columbia, right?
Graduated in '57 from Columbia.
It's a lot of Latin there. Can you understand it all?
Sure. Curators of University of Columbia, the college with all their authority. I really don't understand it. It's funny to think about it. I took Latin,
Yeah.
but I've forgotten most of it.
Uh-huh.
But there's, of course, my NYU medical degree.
Uh-huh.
And downtown I have more of my diplomas. This was my license.
Which was your license?
This is my New York State medical license, which I received in 1963.
1963, huh?
Right. And these are my diplomas from Montefiore. This is my intern mixed medicine, as they called it in those days. I was on the house there from 61 to 62.
Uh-huh.
And remember, we got married in November of '62, so I was a first-year resident.
Uh-huh.
And you can see there, I was a first, second-year resident in medicine, and I was a chief resident in endocrinology.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scheduled to be an endocrinologist. When I
This was
made
this
my-
top one?
Yeah, and when I came up with a theory about heart failure, unconventional theory of heart failure, and
Uh-huh.
one person who really paid attention to it was Dr. Louis Leiter.
Uh-huh.
And he was the chief of medicine. He was a world-famous physician in his own right.
Uh-huh.
And he had enough belief in what I had said and what he had seen that he sent me down to Dr. Cournand.
Uh-huh. Who's Dr. Cornon?
Dr. Cournand at that time was Columbia University's only Nobel Prize winner in medicine.
Okay.
And I met with him and Dr. Fritz and other people.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't anticipate too much, but I thought it was going to be a ball to meet a Nobel Prize winner face to face and discuss some medicine with him.
Hmm.
And after that meeting, he called Dr. Leiter to find out if I'd really done some of the things I
Uh-huh.
said I did. And
Uh-huh.
when Dr. Leiter confirmed that, they called me and they said, how would you be interested in coming down here as a fellow? And this was in May. Fellowships should be given out. And they said, there are no more fellowships, but if you'll come, we'll apply to the New York Heart Society, New York Heart Association for a special fellowship.
Uh-huh.
And I spoke to Roxanne, and
Uh-huh.
we talked about it because I thought finally I'd make some money, and we both agreed you don't often get a opportunity from a Nobel Prize winner, so
Uh-huh.
I accepted.
Uh-huh.
And that led to my eventually becoming a cardiologist.
Mm-hmm. Where's your degree for cardiology?
Well, they don't give you a diploma like that, but these are my boards in cardiology. Where are they?
That's internal medicine.
That's internal medicine, and this is my cardiology board. I never did get my boards in endocrinology, and I never tried for them. I felt I had enough boards already, and in addition to my boards, I became a fellow of the American College of Physicians, that's for internal medicine.
Uh-huh.
And when I took the boards, you had to examine patients, not just know book knowledge.
Uh-huh.
And when I passed my cardiology boards, I was the only person in New York Medical College who took the boards that year who actually passed.
That was a good achievement, huh?
It was a good achievement. It was a tough. And I tried to be part of a study group, but they wouldn't accommodate me. They were all full-timers. So I studied myself, and I learned a little trick, because the first time I took my internal medical boards, I didn't pass, and I was rather shocked because I thought I knew a great deal of medicine, and I learned that passing a test was different from knowing practical medicine. So when I came to my cardiology boards, I bought many books and studied like a Talmudic scholar for 4 or 5 books simultaneously. And
How did you come up with that idea?
well, I just realized that no one book had the things correctly, and the pictures were limited, and I knew that they were going to ask the questions in a certain way, so I really had to know the subjects in a book way, different from practical knowledge. And when they had the cardiology boards, there was something new. They were presented for the first time, and professors took them, everybody from the heads of the department and fellows, so it was a very tough pool to pass the boards. And there's a funny story attached to it, because since they didn't want to accommodate me, I had to study by myself. And when they sent the results in,
These are the people at New York Medical College.
New York Medical College, sure. They, for the first time, changed the rules. Prior to that, for example, for internal medicine, you had to pass a physical diagnosis exam. But they now announced that if you passed the cardiology board, the written part, you would become certified in cardiology. So when I came in, I discovered that everybody had failed except for one woman. And
Yes.
and
Oh, that's a nice little picture, by the way.
yes, let me show you another picture.
That's
Here,
the
a little-
three of us.
Yeah, it's quite faded. I put it down so it wouldn't fade some more. And look at this. Here's something from Jonathan. Happy birthday, Dad, with love, Jonathan. It's broken apart, as you can see. And this was something that Jonathan made for me.
It's very sweet. And this was on your desk for a number of years?
This was on my desk for many years. I guess you can figure out from your age when it's taken. I guess you're about 5, 6 years old in that
I
picture.
think I might be a little bit older, maybe. Well,
You're
yeah.
wearing braces. No, you're older than 5, 6.
Maybe about 8.
You're about 8 years old.
Jonathan's maybe about 14 then, I think.
Right. And
And I'm about 8, and I think Steven's probably about 11 or 12.
Right. Yeah, you can see this broke some time ago, and I guess it's been laying down for a while. Anyway, I started to tell you about the funny story with when I
have about 1 minute of tape left. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't realize that.
I know, but tell me more about this story, and let's walk and show me any other areas here we need to
I
see.
didn't realize it was so little too.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
This one doctor said that she had passed, that no one had passed
Except-
yet, because you had to find out, you had to wait till you took your physical. So no one would yet know, but she had passed the first part. So I said to her, Henrietta, you must be the only doctor, because I got a letter that I had passed, and they told me in my letter that I'm certified already, that you don't have to take the physical part. So on hearing that, she looked stunned, started to cry, and ran out of the room. But anyway, so that brings us up to, maybe we'll continue this interview. Well, at least you got the rooms, you got the.
I think it's lovely.